My aunt and uncle, Janice and Jim, are the outdoorsy, adventurous types. So their high school graduation present to me was a canoeing trip in the Florida Everglades, which was very, very exciting for me when I got to go during my sophomore year of college. It was less exciting for their nephew, Lewis, who is on the other side of the family, who doesn't really like the outdoors or exercise. So the idea of canoeing for days on end in the ocean and canals of the Everglades, and then camping in remote areas of the beach, not so much his thing. We had a great trip. Saw a bobcat, crocodiles, alligators that we canoed really close to, lots of wild birds, just incredible stuff. But that's not what I'm going to tell you about tonight. I'm going to tell you about everything except for the trip itself. I'm going to tell you about the things that happened before and after. As I was in the airport waiting to fly down to Miami, I saw a couple come in and sit down at the same gate, and they were fascinating. Real contrast from each other. He was definitely older. He looked kind of frail, petite, walked with a limp, pretty gaunt, kind of weathered looking, like he had lived a pretty hard life. She, on the other hand, was probably 30 years younger than him, taller, very vibrant, and, for lack of a better term, busty, and dressed to accentuate it. He was carrying a fluffy pink beret. Picture like a shag hot pink carpet in a Barbie house, but it's a hat. That's what he's carrying. So they just sort of captured my attention. And that becomes all the more the case when first class gets called and they get up to go board the plane. So now I'm even more curious. And then, rather than handing her the beret, which I think is about to happen because it would have gone with her outfit, he puts it on. Well, even though I was really intrigued, I sort of forgot about them because it was a great trip. So at the end of the trip, Lewis is flying out several hours earlier than me, really early in the morning. And my aunt and uncle are a little bit anxious about making sure that they can get him to the airport on time and everything. So we actually do a dry run of the airport trip from the hotel the night before. It's after dark, and as we are into the airport itself, we crest a hill, and in front of us is row after row after row of cars and brake lights. And then we see the police checkpoint that they are stopped at, and we think, oh no, what now? And as we get closer and closer, we start to get more and more nervous about this situation because we have really no reason to be there. We're not picking somebody up. We don't have a flight. And we have a pickup truck full of wet camping and canoeing gear. We do not want this whole thing to get searched because we want to get to bed because we have to get up early in the morning. When we get up to the police checkpoint, thankfully the officer appears to be thinking the same thing, not wanting to check that whole truck, and leaves us through taking our explanation as true. So the next morning, no incident, there's no police checkpoint. Lewis is there in time for his flight, but I have hours upon hours in the airport because we got dropped off at the same time. Well, what now? What am I going to do? This is before smartphones, so I didn't have one of those. I had not taken anything extra along because we were doing a canoe camp trip, so I don't have a book. So I did what any rational person would do. I went to that, convenience store where they have the snacks and the food and the books and the magazines, and I go flip through magazines that I'm not going to buy. So I'm flipping through one of these music magazines, and I see somebody that looks familiar. I'm like, why does this there's no reason this person should look familiar. I keep flipping through, and it's bothering me that I can't place this person. Until I get to the last page of the article when I realize that it's the couple from the flight down. I had flown with Iggy Pop and his partner. I get home, and I talk to my aunt and uncle, and I find out that after they dropped us off, they went back to the hotel room and they were watching the news. And on the news, the local news, they saw a report where we showed up on the camera in the truck in the police checkpoint where they were explaining why we had been stopped the night before. It was because the airport had gone into orange alert because there was a guy who was trying to fly out of Miami who had razor blades in his shoes, who said he forgot they were in there. So I get back to work at my seasonal job at Landis Homes where I did groundskeeping, and I am in the break room. I am regaling my coworkers with the very story I'm regaling you with right now about Iggy Pop and the wildlife and the razor blades and the guy that forgot they were in his shoes, when one of my coworkers says, "Oh yeah, well, I know the guy." I'm like, stop dead. And we all look at him, and he goes on to explain, well, yeah, he's a friend of mine. He's a missionary in Central America, and he's in a country where there's frequently kidnappings, abductions. And so he keeps a number of things in his shoes, razor blades, a phone card, and money. So that when he is abducted, which this happened to him on evidently multiple occasions, he has razor blades that he can cut the ropes with, he has a phone card that he can make a call with, and he has money that he can bribe his captors with. Well, I was fully deflated in my storytelling at that point, and I thought, what now? Well, I was a sophomore in college, and I was working a manual labor job, so I just reached for another donut.